Again, thanks everybody for your time. Really appreciate it. I know everybody's really busy, but got some kind of really exciting content we want to share with you today in terms of how we can, practically support that CAF-DSPT process, which I know a lot of you know we're heavily invested into at ITHealth. But want to bring alongside today our partner WALLIX. My slice of transition, that would be great. Joined today by Graham. Do you want to say hi, Graham?
Well, good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you. Nicholas, give us a quick hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thanks very much. Yeah, we're going to hear more from Graham and Nicholas in a while as we kind of go through the next hour together. I'm Chris Booth. If you've not already worked that out, that's my photograph, and I'm on the screen hopefully as well, so fairly easy to work out. We are recording the session. We will send out a follow-up email with a link to the recording and the slide content as well. So don't worry about taking lots of copious notes. We're going to use the chat function today for any questions, which we will monitor during the kind of duration of the session. And we'll obviously, please do put questions in there. It's really great that we get some interaction, and anything you think that you want to know, just ask us in any kind of area. And obviously, while colleagues are presenting their sections, we'll monitor that as well and come back to those. We've got a very brief questionnaire at the end. Again, it just helps us to form up future events, get your feedback on that. So if you do have time to complete that, would be really, really helpful. So thanks in advance for that. If you don't know who we are in terms of ITHealth, there's some good information on the screen right now. We've been established for over 30 years and have been serving the NHS and more recently some of the wider public sector, but certainly the focus is on the NHS for over 30 years now. You'll know us that we've got implementations via our flagship solution, the ITHealth dashboard, but with other products and partners as well, one of those being WALLIX, across 200 some NHS organisations. Again, that continues to grow. And our solutions are kind of vested into that cyber area, identity access management, secure third-party access. And the way that we work is all about relationship. It's all about understanding the needs of our customer, bringing solutions to the market and to the table, working with you and with partners to make sure that solution is the right fit for purpose and brings the right value, not just now, but also into the future. And then we support that, and we support that in a very, very comprehensive way, not by just relying on support calls about the product, but actually how do we help you get the most out of those solutions at a kind of an operational level, a commercial level, but also walking with you on that journey as you adopt those solutions. And over time, it's not just about when you deploy, it's about that journey together. And that's really something that we want to continue to invest into. We're leading today around our partnership with WALLIX, which I'm going to hand over to Graham in a second, and Graham's going to take us into more detail about that before we hear from Nicholas kind of around a demo and more of a technical architecture piece. But we've also got partnerships in place with other vendors as well, which are all complementary. We don't overlap anywhere. We make sure that we kind of carry one product that brings those solutions to the market in a distinct way. And a lot of that builds into, as I mentioned earlier, the ITHealth dashboard, which is now seven years kind of into its life, its second iteration, approaching 160 customers, scanning over 2 million assets a year. And it's a way in which we can also, as you're going to see in a moment, how we can help you bring third-party access technology like WALLIX to bear, and how we can help you kind of test that and make that work effectively for you. So again, any questions on any of these, then please get in touch and we can talk through that with you. Our partnership with WALLIX now, it's probably about a year old now, and those of you who've worked with us for a while will know that we had a strong track record in privileged access management with a product called Assyrian, which is kind of now reaching the end of its life. We needed to look for a product to replace that. We worked very hard on that to do that due diligence piece to make sure we got a product that was fit for purpose, that would meet the needs of our customer base, particularly in the NHS, around some of those key things that you need to address, which we're going to go into in more detail. But also it's about relationship. And we've known Graham for a long, long time. Graham will do his own more in-depth intro in a second, but and that was part of this relationship as well. So what we now have is a really strong relationship with WALLIX. They bring more to the table, as we're going to find out, than what we had with previous solutions. And we really do feel it's a really good fit for purpose, great value for money. We've created some some good bundles again around the product and about how we can bring that to market, which again, more than happy to share with you going forward from today. So really excited about what we're going to hear. Graham, if you're ready and you want to grab the control, then we can kind of get into the meat of this. So I'm going to hand off to Graham now. Graham will hand off to Nicholas, and then I'll come back towards the end. But again, any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll be monitoring them as we go through the session. All yours, Graham.
Thank you very much, Chris. So I'll take reins of the meeting. We'll just move the slides forward. So just do that for a second. It's slightly delayed, so it should take a second. But there we go. You should see that come through on your screens now. So what we're going to do today is to do you an introduction from us. My name's Graham Hawkey. I've been at WALLIX for a couple of years. I'm an account executive focused mainly on contracts and commercial side of the business. And I focus especially on healthcare sector and industrial and critical infrastructure customers. As Chris mentioned, I've worked with ITHealth here and another organisation for probably close to 10 years now, so nearly a decade. We've been working together. So I'm very glad that the guys there chose to work with WALLIX moving forward as their privileged access management and secure remote access provider. So WALLIX, we already work with a number of NHS customers, and we work with a number of healthcare customers in the UK. So we're familiar with working with the CAF and DSPT requirements. So we're going to talk through a little bit about WALLIX to set the scene for you, those of you that don't know us or haven't spoken to us before. We'll touch on the understanding of the healthcare risk regarding third-party access, the supply chain. We'll talk you through a bit about preparing for the CAF cyber assessment framework, a bit about some of the objectives that are required from cybersecurity and how WALLIX can help with those. We've got a customer experience, which I'll mention and talk through that. The risk class model, which we align with things like ISO 27001 and CAF regulations. And then we'll move into the exciting part where Nicholas will introduce you to the architecture and demonstration phase as well. So let's move that along. There we go. Just a little bit of a stick on the slides there. So WALLIX, we are a leader in the identity access management space. We are recognised, as you know, by all the leading sort of consultancy services. We, Visionary and Gartner, for instance, just done the Magic Quadrant recently this year. We specialise really in privileged access management and secure remote access, and predominantly of our 3,500 or so customers we have now, a lot of those fall into the healthcare sector, critical infrastructure and industrial environment. So we work and have done for a number of years, worked across both IT and OT environments. So as we see more medical equipment coming onto the network, we're able to sort of assist and help with that type of environment as well. And we can talk about that a bit later for you. We have the solution available in various different flexible approaches for deployment, from on-prem through hybrid to full SaaS. So we can support NHS trusts. We know sometimes it's commercially constrained with things that you're trying to do, protect yourselves. So we're well aware of that, and we're prepared to talk you through. We have plans in place to help you move to SaaS if that's something that you want to move to eventually as well. So we're well aware of all that sort of stuff, and we work closely with you to define what you need and what your requirements is, where they lead you to. So the first thing we'll touch on today is third-party remote access. So we're talking about bringing in different external providers into your organization, into your structure to carry out certain functions, things like patching, maintenance, diagnostics, firmware updates. Maybe they manage part of your estate for their job, for their contractual purposes, sorry. And they're coming in and they're needing to do that with privileged accounts. They're needing passwords potentially that you might, you shouldn't be really giving to them, that you might be using that at the moment for an entry point. VPNs, for instance, certain specific vendor tools that they might be using from their clients' desktops, all accessing your environment for various different reasons. A lot of it's generally to keep the lights on and keep everything moving forward. But obviously that has a security stance and it has a compliance posture as well. But we need to think about both of those things while we're doing this. And obviously with the CAF regulation, we want to make sure we adhere to that Particularly in what we're going to touch on today is a lot around Objective A, which is obviously around securing remote access and bringing those type of users into the estate. So really it's kind of usually it's quite a different type of uncontrolled environment with lots of different connections happening, various different ways of getting into different machinery and devices in your environment. So the complexities are there and need to be thought about. So we'll touch on that as we go through. Now, the first thing I wanted to sort of think about was these three areas on the right. Is these play very tightly into the project that you're going to think about. So the identities, who is actually coming into our environment? Where are they coming from? You know, do we have shared accounts set up? Have we got individual accounts? Do we have named accounts, generic accounts? How can we track back to who? Is it Graham that's logged into that account and accessed that particular server? We need to show that information for compliance and CAF regulation, for monitoring and session recording purposes. Access, what do they have access to? These users are accessing our estate for purposes of connecting to the machines they need to, but how can we control what they have access to? Making sure they have only access to the right information and the right machines is and on the time that's required, with something like maybe a just-in-time approval process, allowing only people access to systems that are critical once they've gone through an approval process by a management level. Just for instance, that's a key part for bringing in third parties to critical systems. And then the rights, once they get into the estate, if you're going to bring them in via something like a VPN, you're going to punch a hole through the firewall, and then you're allowing them access to things that they probably shouldn't have. You might give them domain accounts, privileged accounts that have much more privilege than they require to the system to make it easier for them to get access, because you might be under-resourced, etc. Well, those rights need to be revoked, and those rights need to be maintained at the least privileged posture to make sure that only people can access the exact systems that they require, and you can record all of those sessions for people that are accessing those systems on said days. Okay, so if we look at something like the Cyber Essential framework from CAF, this allows us to start control and think about how we're going to onboard all of this stuff. Check, evaluate, focus, and realise different ways of thinking about the different steps that need to happen to make this more effective as a project, to make sure we're maintaining the stance and the security posture, make sure we're maintaining the CAF compliance or ISO 27001 regulation, which ties very closely to CAF, and making sure we have those steps in place to bring the business up to control. Things like, if you're thinking about it, the last point on here, for instance, implementing a new regulatory requirement. If you think about putting that into place and then allowing certain security measures to be put in place, those affect the supply chain, as we've mentioned. So consolidation is key here, controlling the access point in, not allowing various different tools being used by different vendors or different approaches being used, making sure that's centralized in your estate. So the control of the credentials don't sprawl out onto the third party's network, and they're controlling them by writing them on a spreadsheet and never changing them, etc. So these are very important parameters that we can help you with from a very sort of deep technical perspective, which we can go into with you on another. Oh, sorry, went past the slide. That was my mistake. When we can go into on another session in some more detail. So if we think about cybersecurity, there's lots of different ways of approaching it, but from a regulation part regarding secure remote access, when we think about something like Objective A, we're talking about preventative cybersecurity here. So we're talking about preventing those type of attacks taking place in the moment, making sure we've got the right tools and procedures in place to bring the users in to the environment through tools like multi-factor authentication, making sure the accounts are set up for them, as I said, so they're not shared accounts that we don't necessarily know who's using them. So using named accounts or that type of approach that we can tie to the authentication method to make sure we can track back to the user for effectively for audit purposes. That's what we're really doing here. And then we look at more of a sort of risk management approach. So thinking about layering in those tools and thinking about the things that need to be done in the estate to control access. So that centralization and controlled one single point to come into the organization. So the multi-factor authentication is on the front end for the users to use. You might have a just-in-time approval process in place, and thinking about that, who needs to access critical systems? Should we allow them to be accessed out of hours, for instance, or those type of terminologies? Really, it's about this first step of this is to think about who's coming into the estate. What do they need access to on a daily, regular basis? What is their function contractually to our organisation from an external perspective? What's critical in the estate? What's not critical? Password rotation as well. So when we connect these people to machines, making sure that the passwords are rotated, the sessions are recorded. All of these things need to be thought about as part of this framework process that we go through. And a lot of this doesn't just tie into the supply chain, it is also to be thought about as your internal estate as well. Okay, so that's more general, I suppose, as a PAM sort of solution and a secure remote access solution. But this is more of a WALLIX approach. So how can WALLIX help you support this directives of making yourself more secure, bringing in your remote users through a secure, remote, centralized, controlled access point, so that you can give high available amount of auditability for what's been going on for your CAF regulations and compliance? Well, Nicholas is going to walk through some of these, so I won't steal his thunder too much yet. But if we look at a couple of different points here that spring to mind, things like maintenance and data processing devices for remote work and remote access. We've talked through this. This is something that we can demonstrate in a moment for you. Connecting to a machine, maybe through from a vendor who has a connection through his workstation or something that needs to connect to the end system that's managing it for in the supply chain for your trust. So that's something we're going to touch on later. Or maybe something that's I find very important is monitoring and logging activities. Making sure that all the sessions that are privileged, that connect to privileged critical systems, are recorded, no matter when or who is connecting to them. And then also making sure there's a full audit trail and syslog trail, so commands and everything that's taken on that people are entering into those machines, and that can be tracked for all external users, so we can tell exactly who's connected to what machine, what they've carried out, and what they've done for their purpose of connecting to those for the service that they offer, the trust. Okay, so let me look a bit more at a real life example now. So a customer that we have here, you see on your screen, MH Birmingham Community Healthcare FT, chose WALLIX for a number of reasons. We've probably spoken about quite a lot of this already. So they had an issue with a growing number of IT administrators that needed access to the systems and applications within their estate for managing and maintenance purposes. And then they were bringing in a lot of external providers, system providers, a lot of them were, and they were growing in numbers. So they were getting into challenges about starting to control this access and be able to audit it. So bringing in WALLIX, there's that central point, as I mentioned, adding MFA, which we offer to customers as well as part of our package through ITHealth, allows you to control those users the same way that these guys have done, to control those users' access into their estates. They got visibility of what people were doing on the environment. That was really first key. And second to that means that the session recording and monitoring meant that they are able to align with their audit and compliance requirements around things like CAF. That's a massive benefit. And you can see there's some other benefits on here. One of the main benefits they had actually was around things going wrong. So the session recording, actually, outside of a compliance and security thing, made their time much quicker to be able to realize what was going on. So they could look back at that recording, understand what happened, and then fix it very quickly in that methodology type approach. Okay, so lastly, before I hand over to Nicholas, I just wanted to add a bit of value to it here, just to say that we treat this very seriously. We treat this from a very technical standpoint. This has been done by our internal CISO, who's mapped the CAF regulations and ISO 2027-1001 regulations as well, to help us build a risk class model which defines what you need to sort of work through with us to approach your privileged access management secure remote access project. So there's different stages of this. Firstly, things like the directory What's the definition of PAM? You know, how are we going to centralize that access? Where does it sit? What are we using to connect to those? What permitted protocols, for instance, are we allowing RDP, SSH, web connections, etc.? So what type of things are we going to be using? The access directions. So now we're looking at more of an organizational structure thing about it. Who has access to what roles are being used in the environment? What privilege applies to the users or user groups that we're using, etc., etc. And is there an approval process in place for critical systems? So just-in-time approval could be linked into a ticketing system for your environment as well for extra compliance. Authentication rules. What are we using to connect to the devices? Are we using passwords? Are they being rotated? Are they as long as possibly as the policies can handle? Are we using keys, etc., etc.? So the different types of authentication we're using, or you're using, and then how we're going to bring that under control and management. Session guidelines, again, same sort of thing applies. Things like, for instance, here we're going to be doing secure file transfer, and do we need to integrate with your ICAP solution, for instance? That springs to mind for me for a question I would be asking. And then lastly, things around password guidelines, making sure your passwords are complex. They can be injected into the target system where at all possible, so they don't need to be in a check-in and check-out process, so no humans need to see them. And again, building in a break glass procedure around all of this process aligns with access for third parties and supply chain, and monitoring those coming into your systems. Okay, it's the last build on the slide. This last slide I wasn't going to touch on too much today because I've gone over all of this stuff already, and I think you kind of get the gist of where I'm coming from. But it's all around the risk class model. As I said, it's something that we take very seriously around compliance at WALLIX, and we align very closely with all the different security compliance procedures across all different countries and sectors. Thank you very much. That's my section coming to a close. Any questions, please do ask. Happy to answer, and I'll hand over to Nicholas, who will take you through the demonstration. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. So before starting to show you the demo of our solutions, I would just want to show you very briefly how we can build a PAM solution and how it will map most likely to the CAF requirements. So you can see here three zones. So the first one is the zone of your resources. Then you have your privileged users. Let's not neglect them. Second point, most of what we can do with the privileged users that are internal, we can do the same with the external users. And the point here, the key point is that everything will be centralized in the WALLIX PAM solution. So let's build the PAM environment. So the first point, the first module is what we call the WALLIX bash, the first appliance. Sorry. So this contains a vault. That's where you're going to store your sensitive credential for your sensitive resources. It's shipped with a password manager, and the password manager will have two roles. The first one is to provide access to password to privileged users. Sometimes you need to type the password locally on the keyboard, and you want to trace that. So the auditors, that's on the profile that you can set up on the solution, will access the credential access log, so who access which credentials, and will also access the credential history, because the second role of the password manager is to change the password automatically or after each use. The point is to change the password after each use is that it's like lending someone your keys to your flat to make some repair under your sink or whichever. And after that, after the plumber gives you back the keys, you will change the logs automatically. So even if there's a copy of the password, the person cannot get in unless the person requests the new password. The auditor will have access to secret history for one major reason. Is that the fact that the auditor will be able to prove that you have respected the password complexity. The second module is the session manager, and it will turn the WALLIX PAM bastion into a proxy for RDP and SSH, but will also provide you access using all the protocols like VNC or Telnet. So you can see that I've grouped the resources by type. So you have Windows resources at the top, you have Unix SSH-based, text-based resources in the middle, and applications at the bottom. This is not how you should, of course, organize your resources, but more likely organized by type of business or by departments or by kind of sensitivity. This is what you can define on the WALLIX Bastion with using the RBAC model. So with the Bastion being a proxy, we'll be able to do a few things like record logs, so like text-based logs of what the user did, video recordings like Ram mentioned, and also apply some restrictions. I want to prevent this user to block to run a reboot command on a very sensitive server. I want the person to not run this particular program, and I want the person to not do a lateral move. So if a person is allowed to connect to a specific resource, I want to prevent that person from connecting from that resource to another resource while bypassing the WALLIX Bastion. That's something that you can do. And the key point here is that our solution is agentless. You don't need to install anything with or without admin rights on your target systems. There's a specific use case here for universal tunneling is when you have the best use case, I guess, in the medical industry is when you have a vendor who needs to remotely connect to your MRI just to perform maintenance or to do an update. The person will never share, or the vendor will never share the software that the vendor uses. So that way you can create a kind of tunnel to encapsulate the connection, and it will be recorded. You will have a trace of what the vendor did on your MRI. That is a very sensitive device, as you know. So that way we can control who can connect to what, and we can control what they do during the session. And an additional layer of security is the approval workflow. Even if your internal users and your privileged users that are externals can connect, you want to control when they connect, and you don't want to give them like a always access, always on access to access the resources. Within the full workflow, you will be able to control when the person connect to your resources. For now, we've only talked about internal access, but like I said, the external access is roughly the same. The only difference is that the external users will connect using another appliance, which is the access manager. So this appliance is supposed to sit in the DMZ if it is self-hosted or can be deployed in the IaaS environment, or it's available as a SaaS solution as well. Same for the Bastion, I forgot to mention. One thing that you can do is to keep the Bastion with all your security, all your access, all your credentials on site while you provide remote access with our solution as a SaaS module. That way, the privileged users will connect using just HTTPS, no direct RDP, SSH, or HTTPS connection inside your network. They will first land on the access manager, and then the access manager will act as any client that the privileged user internally could use. Nothing prevents the internal users as well to use the access manager because it's a web console. Sometimes it's easier for internal users that are not very technical to use a web console rather than using a client directly. Another layer, we can provide MFA, or you can use the MFA vendor that you have chosen. So it's entirely up to you. You can even mix the many different MFA vendors. One possibility to add another layer, and that's not really only security in that case, it's more like productivity. So sometimes, especially in your sector, you don't want to have any kind of access being slowed down by red tape administrative processes when you want to onboard someone. With a delegated admin, which is a part of our identity as a service solution, you can define who from your internal users can create an access for external users. And this is, you don't need admin rights on the solution. So you delegate the administration on specific groups, of course, for specific users to the users and not to the administrators. So if someone needs to onboard someone to fix, to make a maintenance on your MRI machine, then you can have only a user doing that, if you allow it, of course. You can also add another layer of security on the target system with WALLIX PDM, which means that you can define privileges, access only on the application rather on the session itself. The two main use cases are: you have admin rights on a Windows computer. Does it make sense if you run a web browser with admin rights? So WALLIX PDM can remove automatically the admin rights when the administrators run Edge or Chrome with admin rights. And the other way around, you can have a basic user with no admin rights at all to give this user admin rights only for a particular application, preventing you from giving admin rights for the user to do anything the user would want. You can interface the solution with an antivirus or DLP software. So DLP to prevent extraction of sensitive data, personal health records, and also to prevent user from uploading a virus onto your systems. Last break, WALLIX IAG is another module to make an inventory of who can access what in your environment, not only for privileged access management, but for any kind of access. And it will give you the possibility to run a recertification campaign, like asking every manager, is this all right if this person can access this particular asset? Okay, let's now jump in the demo. All right, so this is my WALLIX bastion. I'm going to log as an admin, and I won't go through all the possibilities because there are like many possibilities on the WALLIX bastion, but I will just show you where the center, the core of the configuration lies. This is the authorizations. In the authorization, you will allow a group of users, could be internal users, could be users defined on the solution itself, could be from AD, from Azure, ID, sorry, from any kind of identity provider, and a group of targets. So this group of targets can contain two kinds of targets. So let's use basic user. Password management, that's you giving, as an administrator of the solution, giving access to password. You can see there's only one password available. There are many defined on the PAM solution, but only one available for this group. And session management targets, where you can connect using the defined accounts here. So now let's connect as a user. I'm going to connect directly on the bastion. So right now I'm an internal user. I will connect as basic user. I can see my sessions, and I can only see what I'm allowed to connect to, and my secrets. I can only see the secrets I can use. So now, if I click on this password, I can see the password. I can copy and paste it. I have a limited amount of time. The password will be changed automatically. So this maps with the 0.8.24 like use cryptography with from the Objective B, Principle B3 from CAF. I'll try to reference all of them during the demo. I don't know them really well, but I will try to mention them as often as I can. So now password, and when I'm done with the password, I can give the password back. And now if I try to see the password again, this is a different password. So I can only use the password during the time I'm allotted to. And now if I connect as an auditor, I can go to the account history. And I can see the activity. So I can see, so for the time I'm not in the right time zone, but you can see that basic user access this password. And you can have a look at the history as well. And you can see the previous password. You can't see the current one, because there are only the previous password. So now with the screen, you can prove that you have respected the password complexity, which is likely not the case here. And based on that, you can go to password management and say, all right, the security policy is not correct. And I can change the password policy and raise the number of characters for the password. And then you can go to the targets accounts, device accounts for your device or for your domain. And select all of them. This one has a password change disabled, and do an automatic credential change for all the accounts defined on this particular device or this particular domain. So now let's go back to the user. So I can connect to my Debian system. This is a bit small. Let me erase the font. That should be enough. And now I can work as usual. So here I just clicked on a link that open PuTTY automatically. You can use any kind of SSH or RDP client to connect to your device internally. So this is really good for user resistance. Your internal users are used to use a specific type of software. They can keep using it because the bastion is just a RDP and SSH proxy. Let's learn some activity. I can try to change the try to reboot. I can normally I can't be able to. I can change the password. But if I insist on a forbidden pattern, eventually I will be disconnected. So now let's go back to the session history. And you can see who connected to what, for how long, the start time, end time. You can see everything that the privileged user saw. The privileged user had a look at the SSH configuration profile. And you have what is very important here, what we call the metadata, which are the logs, the text logs that can be sent to a SIEM system. And you saw here the pop-up mentioning that I tried to reboot the computer. I typed a forbidden command. So you can be notified at the speed of an email that someone did that. And you can jump into the history or in the current session, which I'm going to show you very soon with Windows. So now I will connect on a Windows device. So it opens MSTSC. You can use any kind of RDP client that you like. There's a security warning saying that I will be recorded. So now I'm connecting to the bastion. I'm connected to the bastion using RDP, and the bastion is connecting using RDP to the Windows 2019 server. And I can see that the session in real time. And I have a notification saying that I'm currently being monitored. I can block commands. I can't. I'm an admin on the system, but I can't run Task Manager. It's being blocked automatically by the Bastion without any agent. What I can do as well is prevent the user from connecting from this target system. So you can see PuTTY is running, it's not being blocked. But as soon as I'm going to try to connect using SSH, so the policy defined for this access is no SSH connection, no RDP connection. So PuTTY is not blocked. But as soon as I'm going to try to open the connection, PuTTY will be killed. And so we will detect the network connection and we kill the process if it doesn't respect the policy implemented on the PAM solution. Again, you will see the pop-up coming. I can disconnect and I can have a look in the session history. So basic user. Video are being generated. We only store the differences between the frames, which means that we don't store a lot of data for the session recordings. So you can see everything that happened during the session, again, without any agent. There's a specific event, keyboard input that you can look for, and you can see that I typed the host that I'm not supposed to connect to. You have like snapshots, and you have the full video recording of the session, so you can see exactly how I was behaving. Was I using copy and paste? Was I typing erratically? Was I looking for something? This is something that the video can give you and help you understand what really happened if something bad happens. All right. Now for a FAT client. We're using RDP. We're connecting to a Windows server that will start the SQL client in that case. Its RDP will be recorded as well as it was for the previous session with Windows. So far, no credential injection during the sessions. Everything was done by the WALLIX Bastion. The only credential I've used is the one for basic user. Okay. Now I was working internally. Now what happens if for example, I'm working from home? So I will, in this case, use the access manager in the DMZ or in the cloud. So I will just show you basic user. You will see everything will be the same as you saw before. Everything is centralized only on the Bastion. The access manager doesn't hold any sensitive data. This will just deal with the authentication. So I can connect to Azure. And it will inject the credentials automatically. All right, it will going to ask me for a 2FA, but I will just skip to the next use case. And again, everything is recorded, and this maps to the CAF Objective-C Principle C1. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the universal tunneling use case. So I'm going to log out. And I was just using a simple authentication on the access manager. So this is the same access manager, but in this case, I will use a different authentication mechanism, which relies on Entra ID. And with Entra ID, I've set something I have set MFA. So I will Of course, this is TOTP. It should be something slightly better, but still MFA. And I'm redirected automatically to my access manager. So now I will be logged as privileged user. You see more resources, and I'm going to connect to my Windows 2019 as administrator. So unfortunately, I don't have an MRI with me to show you. So I will try to rely on your imagination. This is a bottle filling supply chain. Okay, it's a virtual plant because MRI is the same as any industrial equipment, really. So I'm running the so this is the MRI, and I know what happens if I'm a vendor and I want to connect to the MRI. So the vendor will likely propose you to install something like a VPN software, VPN device, so they can connect. And of course, you can use that, but this is not secure because you cannot control exactly what happens. And we know that now a lot of risk is induced by third parties access. So you want to secure that, and one way to do that is to use the access manager with universal tunneling. So I'm going to go back to my integration, and I'm going to connect to my virtual plant. So now it's going to open a tunnel. So this tunnel goes to the access manager, which goes to the bastion, and we forward the connection to the MRI bottle factory. Okay, you can see that the redirection was open, and now I can control. So now if I go back to the other window, I can see that the bottles are filling. So it could be medicine, this could be an MRI, this could be really anything. And of course, you as an auditor, you can see that some privileged user is connected to the virtual plant, to your MRI. And you can also detect disconnect the user. So I'm going to kill the session, and now the user is disconnected. And I cannot control anymore. I cannot stop. So you keep control on the connection from the vendor. Okay. So now if you go to session history, you will have traceability of what happened. In that case, that won't be a video recording, but that will be all the data transfer, all the settings that were sent to the device, to the medical device. Okay, let me disconnect. So now another use case that I wanted to show you is the approval workflow. So now I'm going to connect as a contractor. To a different person, different set of resources. And now if I want to connect to my Linux system, I can't connect directly. So I can connect right now, I can ask for a connection right now, or I can schedule it for later. I need to enter a ticket number, and I need to put a reason, validate, and now it's going to be rejected Why? Because if you don't have an ITSM ticketing system, you can rely completely on the WALLIX Bastion. But if you have one, we can interact with it. We can rely on the status of the ticket in your ticketing system rather than on the status on the Bastion. That's entirely up to you. For this demo, both are enabled. So you need to have a valid ticket, which I don't have for this case. There's an emergency number, so it will create automatically a ticket in ServiceNow. And I will have to approve it nevertheless using another kind of person, which is an approver. That all these persons as auditors, approvers, contractors, you define them on the WALLIX Bastion. I will connect as an approver, should receive an email soon. Okay, I want to review. I can say, okay, but only 10 minutes. Rebooting doesn't take 1 hour. And I don't want to be charged for 1 hour when something can take 10 minutes only. Approve. And if I reopen the session, I will be logged in. So this maps to CAF Objective B Principle B2 for access contractors and parties. So something that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to try to do that in 3 minutes so we can have like 5 minutes for the other questions. So I'm going to connect using WALLIX IDaaS. And this is the delegated admin application. So this is what your user with who has the possibility to create access to your resources would see. Of course, this is critical, so I need 2FA. And I can create a user. So I've created a specific group for this demo. And I can say Nick Mosk and Nick Mosk. Never mind, I will share an email. I can set an account expiration. So let's say I want this to end at the end of business. And I have this. I can copy the link. I will go to another browser. And now, as the guest, I can onboard myself, creating a new password. And depending on the configuration that you have set in WALLIX IDaaS in the delegated admin, I will have to enable 2FA on my phone. This is entirely up to you. You can force your third-party contractors that you enroll using the delegated admin to use 2FA. Last thing I wanted to show you is what happens if you are really in emergency. Let me sign out. And connect privileged user. So you are in an emergency. You need someone to connect like right now. So you connect to your to the resource. You log in, and then once you're logged in, you can share a link that you can copy and share with anyone. So this is for critical ad hoc invites, but the person will be able to connect very quickly, and you can control the access. So if you can give access to the person, you can take access back from the user. And of course, because accountability is critical, you will have 2 different audit trails. Okay, I think I'm done. So Chris, over back to you. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Nicholas. That was really powerful. Thank you. Makes me think about the times when I hear our engineers talking about having to access to support the dashboard, and it's some of those connections can be quite interesting with some of our customers. So yeah, hopefully some might benefit from this. There's a couple of questions that have popped into the chat, so I think we can see them. But how does WALLIX prevent credential exposure and workflow bypass with break glass access account?
So I'm not sure I understand the question completely, but regarding credential exposure, so we try as much as we can to provide access through the session manager. That's the first rule. You only share password if you really need to. Sometimes you have to provide passwords or credentials, and that's the use case I showed in the beginning, that if you provide password, you need to rotate them immediately after. That's the best use case. In bypass on break glass account access. So by break glass, if for example the bastions are not the bastion is not reachable. So first you wouldn't have only one bastion. You will have many of them for redundancy, because you don't want single point of failure. So now if something really bad happened, and I mean, although your two data centers separated from 200 miles are destroyed at the same time, you have the possibility, on the bastion to share the accounts, the password for the accounts that were just changed. It's encrypting using a GPG key. It can be sent to an administrative email. That's really in a catastrophe scenario. And you can just, with this GPG key that you have to secure somehow, you can access the password and you can connect back to your devices. And this is how you prevent that. Workflow bypass, I think that's the more network related question. So like for any proxy, if you don't enforce the users to use a proxy, like let's take the example of a web proxy. If I can go out surf on the web without going to the proxy, I will likely do it. So you need to enforce the user with a firewall. Use the proxy, use the bastion proxy, but that's for internal users. And now internal users are not all the time internals anymore. So that way you need to secure the credentials and force the users to use the WALLIX bastion to access the credentials. One use case that I haven't shown today is if I'm Nicholas, I have my account, day-to-day account, Nicholas, that I use to connect on to see my emails, and I have my administrative account, which is Nicholas dash ADM. This account is mine. It's tied to me. I'm the only one who can use it, but I can only access it. I can only consume this account to connect to servers or sensitive assets if I connect to the bastion. The workflow will be, I log in as Nicholas. This is account mapping. So if you watch the video again, you can see when I present the targets, you see account mapping, and it will transform what we call a vault transformation rule. My login, my initial login, my primary login into my ADM login. So Nicholas into Nicholas-ADM. But I don't know the password for this Nicholas-ADM account. So I will need to use the password. And for cloud-based resources, this is something that you should do, because there's no way you're going to prevent your users from using a phone and connecting directly.
Okay, cool.
20 seconds left. What happens in the disaster recovery scenario is the bastion host proxy backed up. Yes, I mean, you can have either like full HA availability, and you spare a node from your cluster that is not used, only used when something bad happens. And if your disaster recovery site is not always online, we can automate a transfer of all the configuration, including the credentials, every night, or every night and every day at noon, or as frequently as you wish.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Welcome, Thomas.
Time has beaten us,
Yeah.
but that was very comprehensive, very good from thanks for Nicholas, and thanks Graham for that kind of intro leading into that demo. If anybody has any further questions that they've not had a chance to ask today, then please pop us an email. We can respond to those in due course. There's an email on the screen now that you can use. Please, by all means, pass that through me initially. Emma's popped up the link for the Survey Monkey again. If you've got time, that would be really, really helpful. But can I just say thank you to everybody for joining. Thanks for staying with us. Thanks to Graham and to Nicholas and to colleagues who've helped us organise this. And if we can help with anything around privileged access management, and then please get in touch. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Cheers now.